My name is Jeremy Hess, and this is my summative blog for organizational behavior with Professor Edelson. Reflecting on the year and how it went, I would say that class discussion on topics in organizational behavior went very well. Topics both of lighthearted and serious content were discussed. Hearing the class's wide variety of experiences was very helpful in my learning of the subject matter, and I liked the format. Some classes are strictly lecture. In the MBA program, I feel much of the learning is from one another in the classroom. In the first class, we talked about the use of subgroups at work and if they have a positive or negative effect on the organization. I do feel that inclusion is important, but these groups can sometimes have the opposite effect, resulting in exclusion simply because the group exists. I'm part of a group that plays basketball on Tuesday nights and other that golfs during the summer months. I will say that these have helped me professionally due to the amount of networking that takes place and the camaraderie formed outside of work. This has had a positive effect on my career. If this group has ostracized itself, however, and only spend time together because of common interest in basketball or golf, I would consider that the group has a negative effect. For the second class, we watched the TED Ed talk by Susan Cain. This talk has made me think about introverts and extroverts in a different way than I had previously. Many times extroverts are seen as cut above their introverted counterparts. However, both groups are necessary for a group and or company to excel. I have experienced both personality types at work, and both need to be approached and worked with differently. It can be argued that many people are ambiverts, having introversive and extroversive characteristics, depending on the setting or situation. To apply this at work, I will look to be more cognizant of what people I am dealing with and craft each approach that is more sensitive to coworkers' needs. In the third class, we discussed expectancy theory. I've never looked at motivation from a scientific or metrics-based approach. However, Vroom's theory makes sense. 3 elements, when weighed evenly and multiplied, help assess desirability of a certain motivation effort. If one of the elements is not present or is weak, an employee's motivation may also not be present. This can be used to determine why employees desire forms of motivation over others. I cannot currently use this concept in management since I do not directly manage employees. However, it is an approach that is transferable to coaching and parenting. We also discussed perceived value and manipulation. This is something that I often use in negotiation at work. The best purchasing agent is a great salesman. When working on agreements with suppliers, depending on the situation, I sell payment terms, contract length, volume rebate incentives, or other things. They may not have a lot of valence to the supplier, but tactfully I try to convince them otherwise. In Class 4 we discussed emoticons and jargon. I did not feel engaged in the class discussion. Communication is key in all facets of life, and effective communication can make or break a project. It is important to know this and to seek to understand communication styles and team environments. This can alleviate confusion and keep projects moving appropriately. In Class 5, I was absent for, but did the readings and answered 2 classmates' questions. Much of the readings were around ethics, which I believe are extremely important in business practice. Strong ethics belong at the forefront of every organization, and sadly many times it is not. Strong ethics is a mindset that needs to be embodied by employees. At Smucker, ethics is ingrained in our basic beliefs. I feel very strongly that my moral code and upbringing drives me to act ethically in business. Certainly, there are times when I am tempted to act otherwise, such as when a supplier offers me sporting event tickets or golf outings. Conflicts of interest appear frequently, and a strong ethical code can make them disappear just as fast. When I get a team of my own, I will be sure to create a culture that will make employees feel empowered to make ethical choices and not feel as though their own beliefs will be compromised when confronted with an ethical dilemma. Cross-culturally, this gets a bit opaque, and some companies have come under fire because of their business practices with other countries, where bribery and child labor is a normal practice. Ethics is not the difference between right and wrong, but many times is a right and wrong, a right and right or a right and wrong. Many times a right and right or a wrong and wrong. In the 6th class, we talked about putting together formal and informal teams. I think both can be effective, and I have been a part of both. At work, I have been more aware of how teams I am on mesh and if they have the right individuals as part of it. Informal teams that are put together sometimes have more passion involved in it, but formal teams are formed formally and typically have the right individuals represented. Also talked about was cohesiveness. At work, there is not always a cohesive group working together. In many cases, cohesiveness is a good thing. In my opinion, teams will work better if they are formed with a cohesive group that can work well together. I feel as though many teams I work on understand that we are all experts in our own area and that collaboration of the different functions will have the greatest result. The last class was held with discussion on what failure is. Failure can be a subjective term. unless metrics are predetermined on what success looks like. If I fail at something, I can now look at it from a different lens. Was my goal unattainable to begin with? If I succeed, was the bar set too low? And have I really gained satisfaction from achieving this goal? We also discussed the concept of having a devil's advocate in meeting room to shake things up and challenge norms and general discussion. I have thought of doing this at work and hope to employ the idea specifically in an innovation session. This will get individuals to think differently about ideas if there's a challenger in the room. As discussed in class, statistically, meetings and teams are more productive and efficient with this type of atmosphere. In conclusion, this class has really got me to think about the management side of business and how to motivate employees when I do manage a team. I can start by using these learnings and tactics in meetings and team setting to better the involvement and engagement of team members to help in the overall effectiveness of the group. I've been able to look at how my managers manage their people and assess what I like and don't like about it from an OB standpoint. It has given me much better grounding on how the workplace should operate and how it can be more effective. In the Chapter 7 extra reading we were asked to read, one of the best things I learned was that time is a company's most valuable resource. Understanding this, I have been more aware of how to give back time by utilizing effective meetings with the right individuals for the right amount of time. It has honestly changed the way I think about time at work. At work I do not get paid by the hour, but the value that I bring to the hour.